Rolex doesn't sell watches, it sells controlled desire, engineered over more than a century of strategic discipline. When Hans Wilsdorf founded the company in 1905, he didn't start with a revolutionary movement or a complicated invention. He started with a branding decision. In the early 20th century, most watches were pocket watches. Wristwatches were seen as fragile, feminine accessories. Wilsdorf, however, believed the wristwatch could become a tool for modern life. But to achieve that, he understood something crucial. Credibility had to be built before luxury could be claimed. Instead of focusing on aristocracy, he focused on proof. In 1926, Rolex introduced the Oyster case, the first truly waterproof wristwatch. Rather than just advertising it, Rolex placed the watch on the wrist of Mercedes Gleitz as she swam across the English Channel. Then, they published the results in newspapers. This wasn't just marketing, it was engineered legitimacy. From that moment on, Rolex associated itself with real-world achievements. Over the following decades, the brand attached its identity to exploration, aviation, mountaineering, and deep-sea diving. When Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay reached the summit of Mount Everest in 1953, Rolex made sure the story was connected to the Explorer model. When divers descended into the Mariana Trench, Rolex prototypes were right there with them. The message was clear: Rolex equals human achievement. This strategy created a psychological shift. The watch was no longer an object, it was a symbol of capability. Then came the second pillar: distribution control. Unlike many luxury brands, Rolex doesn't flood the market. It produces at scale, but distributes with friction. Authorized dealers receive limited allocations. Certain models are intentionally difficult to obtain. Waiting lists create social proof. Scarcity, in this case, isn't artificial in the short term, but carefully calibrated in the long term. By restricting immediate availability, Rolex transformed stainless steel sports watches into status signals. The Submariner, the Daytona, the GMT Master, they became cultural currencies. Secondary market premiums reinforced the perception of value appreciation, turning consumption into a perceived investment. This wasn't accidental. Rolex understood that controlling supply is more powerful than increasing advertising. The company is privately owned by the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, which allows it to think in decades, not quarters. Without shareholder pressure, Rolex can prioritize brand equity over short-term profit. The design language also plays a strategic role. Rolex rarely redesigns radically. It's evolution, not revolution, ensuring recognizability across generations. A Submariner from 1960 and one from today share the same visual DNA, reinforcing a sense of timelessness. This consistency reduces risk for buyers. A Rolex purchased today will not look outdated tomorrow. Stability becomes security, security becomes value. Another strategic layer is universality. Rolex chose a name that's easy to pronounce in multiple languages: short, symmetrical, memorable. The crown logo reinforces authority subconsciously, embedding royal symbolism into everyday wear. Even the pricing follows a psychological architecture. Rolex positions itself high enough to signal success, but accessible enough to remain aspirational for ambitious professionals. It sits at that perfect intersection between elite and attainable luxury. That balance is incredibly difficult to maintain, yet Rolex has mastered it for over a century. The brand rarely engages in controversy. It avoids excessive celebrity dependence and maintains institutional partnerships with events like Wimbledon and prestigious equestrian shows, reinforcing refinement rather than hype. In modern times, social media and resale platforms have only amplified Rolex's strategy. Waiting lists became publicly visible, premiums became quantifiable. Online communities transformed demand into a collective obsession. Yet, Rolex didn't change its core model. It simply allowed the ecosystem to amplify what was already engineered. The result is a brand that dominates both primary and secondary markets without ever appearing aggressive. Rolex created a closed loop of desire. Achievement creates credibility. Scarcity creates urgency. Consistency creates trust. And trust creates generational loyalty. Today, when someone buys a Rolex, they aren't just buying a mechanical device. They are buying into a century-long narrative of accomplishment, discipline, and controlled prestige. The greatest strategic lesson from Rolex is simple. Luxury isn't about complexity, it's about control. control of supply, control of image, control of narrative, and above all, control of time itself. Rolex didn't become powerful by being the most complicated watchmaker. It became powerful by being the most disciplined brand in modern luxury history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.